Hello, Hydrant Church. It's Pastor Tim. I just wanted to take a minute to give you an update on how things are going at Hydrant Church and what's happening and our kind of strategy for coming back together. The elders and the staff are in conversation weekly about the right time to come back together, about the markers and the things that we need to see happening in our community for us to be able to come back together here on our facility in our worship center. And there are several factors that are a part of this conversation. Two of the biggest concerns for us are the size of our building and the demographic of our congregation. Our building, and especially our worship area and our kids areas, are small. We do multiple services packed into these small spaces together. And the second thing is the demographic of our community, of our church community, our church family. You see, our church family is very young. 80% of our church is under the age of 40. We have on any given Sunday somewhere between 40 and 50 children, most of whom are under the age of about 8 years old. And then we have another 10 or 15 teenagers that gather with us every weekend for worship. These young kids especially are some of the most vulnerable when it comes to the virus that we face. And so the question being asked is, when will we be able to come back together? And the answer is, when it's safe for our children. When it's safe for our children to be together in worship and in gathering, to be able to laugh and hug and connect in a meaningful way that reflects the heart of Hydrant Church. We know that as much as we might try as adults to keep that 6 foot of distance between us, that there is no way that our children will be able to do that. And so it makes it unwise for us to gather in our building. In fact, it makes it unwise for us to try to host outdoor services because there is just no way to protect our children in that. Now, we recognize that we have a constitutional right to gather. We don't disagree with that. But we look to Paul and the example of Paul, who is willing to lay down his rights, to lay down things that he should be able to demand and expect for the sake of others in the community, for the sake of those he loves and those he's trying to reach. And so Hydrant Church recognizes that while we have a right to gather, whether inside or outside, that the most important thing is that we love the most vulnerable. And so we will choose to act in love. We're monitoring the system. We're monitoring the rules. We're monitoring what's coming out. We have elders with young children and teenagers. We have elders who work in the medical field and the academic fields. And we're looking to do the wisest and the best thing for our people. Now, we're hoping that starting next week that Governor Cooper will allow small groups of about 25 to start to gather. And when that happens, we will invite and even encourage you to host a house party, a house church, if you would. Gather with others in your life group. Gather with friends in your neighborhood and come together to watch the worship service together, to eat together, to do so in a way that is safe and comfortable. We're not demanding it. We're not even expecting it. It's simply an invitation to those who are comfortable and hungry for a next step of connection and outreach to be able to host those as the laws allow. And we will facilitate those house parties with some resources, and we will do our very best to be the church. Throughout this time, we have continued to connect. We have continued to fill. We have continued to overflow. And we encourage you to be a part of those things. Connecting in worship, filling in our life groups that happen through Zoom and other ways, and then to overflow. You may not realize all of the ways that Hydrant has been overflowing from the beginning of this pandemic. We have resourced ER nurses with snacks and the things they need to be able to sustain them, and just the encouragement of knowing that the community believes in them. We have been feeding the hungry through our food pantry, not just on Saturday, the third Saturday of the month, but throughout the weeks as we hear of needs. We have implemented our Dollar Club Fund to meet needs within our church. We have served with the United Way to provide meals to hungry children in our community. We have been a part of Laundry of Love, and we have washed the clothes for the homeless, continuing to help them to be as safe as they can be. Hydrant Church is alive and well and continuing to connect and overflow and to fill in the midst of all of this. Now, we want to be together. I'm as hungry for those handshakes and those embraces, and I can't wait to hear us worship together. But it's important that we protect one another. It's important that we show love and that we continue to be the church that God has called us to be in each stage of what's happening. We're doing our best to be as wise as we can be, to be as understanding as we can be. We recognize that introverts and extroverts are all hurting. We realize that there are those who are hurting from the loss of business. We realize that there are those who are hurting from waiting inside. We're all hurting in different ways. Know that we are praying for you. We love you and we believe in you. And we can't wait to be back together again as Hydrant Church. Until that day, we have your back. We're praying, we're believing, and we're serving because Hydrant loves Goldsboro. Hydrant Church connects and fills and overflows no matter what's going on in our world.